Hello and welcome to Baba Eats, where I make healthy meals for the whole family, including my toddler. We have been in the mood for Mexican food, and I have not yet fed my toddler salsa. And today I'm going to be making a salsa to give her to see if she likes it, to go along with our tofu tacos. So to start with, I'm going to make the salsa and set that aside, and then I'll get started on the tofu for the tacos. So today for my salsa, I'm going to be using tomatoes, jalapenos. Depending on how spicy this is, I may not put too much in there. Some white onion, a lime, some green onions, cilantro, garlic, salt and pepper, and white wine vinegar. And usually I would like to use a food processor if I wanted it really small, but I'm gonna just go ahead and make this kind of chunky, and then also I don't have to clean the food processor, which sometimes feels like that's more of a pain than chopping all of the vegetables. I'm gonna start with crushing my garlic. I'm using 2 large cloves of garlic, and this crusher that I absolutely love, that I have had for probably more than 10 years. I'm going to slice up all of my vegetables pretty thin, saving the ends here to go into my freezer stash for making broth, and just chopping up all this onion and getting it in there. So it might be like a little bit more like a pico type salsa, where the vegetables are not super tiny, but a little bit chunky. I'll make some progress here and then come back and show you what it's looking like. Okay, I've got my leafy part of my cilantro in here, the white onion, green onion, and garlic. And then I am setting aside some of my chopped white onion and the stems from the cilantro. So the leafy part I put in the salsa, the stems I'm setting aside, and I'm gonna cook the stems in with the tofu to give that some flavor. Now I'm gonna cut into my jalapeno and give it a little bit of a taste. Whew, that is a spicy one. My eyes are burning. Yeah, I'm gonna use just a very little bit of the jalapeno chopped super fine in the salsa, and also set some aside to put into the tofu. My daughter doesn't like spicy food, so I'll probably chop a little bit of extra jalapeno to put on the side for my husband to eat because he likes the spicy. But for my daughter and I'm just gonna do a tiny bit. So here's a look at how finely I chopped that jalapeno, and I'm gonna put some of it in each of my containers here. And as a reminder, for those of you that may not work with jalapenos much, make sure that you wash your hands really well after working with something spicy. You may even want to wear gloves if you're working with a really spicy pepper. Avoid touching your face, and wash your cutting board if you don't want everything else that you're going to be cooking to be spicy like a jalapeno. Now onto the tomatoes. I'm going to save the inner part of the tomato to go into my freezer stash for making my vegetable broth. And the rest of the tomato will get chopped up to go into the salsa. And in the kitchen, I'm usually just a 1-knife cooker. I absolutely love this knife that I have. I think it's a Shun knife that I got for a Christmas gift a few years ago, and it's amazing. I use it for everything. But for cutting the tomatoes, I'm kind of smushing them because they're a little bit soft. So I'm switching over to this knife that is a serrated knife that is also a shun, and it works very nicely on these tomatoes. Also, it's a little bit sharper since it's not one that I use as often as this kind of all-around knife that I use that looks like it's a 7.5-inch Santoku knife. But I use this all the time, so it probably needs to be sharpened. On with the tomatoes. All right, that knife worked extremely well for chopping these tomatoes. And here are my thinly diced, small diced tomatoes in here. And I'm going to add in my lime. And oh my gosh, I love this knife so much. Last summer we traveled and we did a really long road trip up the coast of California, and I brought my knife with me to do cooking while we were on the road. And my husband, he laughed at me for taking my amenities along with me, but my knife is one of my favorite things that I just have to take with me. And obviously not if we're doing plane travel, but if we're going to be in the car, why not take my knife with me, since I'm going to be cooking while we're on the road as well. This is a super juicy lime, exactly what I was hoping for. I like a lot of lime juice in my salsa. Makes it nice and fresh and gets that nice acid in there. And I get as much juice out of that lime as I can. I'm gonna do some fresh ground black pepper and some salt as well. And then a little bit of white wine vinegar, just a touch, not much of that at all. Now I'm gonna mix this up. Has nice amount of tomatoes in there with a little bit of green. Looking good. Next up, of course, is to give it a taste. It's good. I'm gonna do a little more salt and pepper. And even though that lime was extremely juicy, I'm gonna go get another lime and squeeze another lime in there. I don't know if you can see all the juice coming out of that lime, but it is very juicy as well. I think I'll only go with another half a lime, so 1.5 super juicy limes in here. And I'll give it another stir. Ooh, yeah. I got a bite of jalapeno in there too with a little bit of spice. Really good now. Perfect. Now I'm going to go on to making the tofu tacos. I'll be right back with the ingredients. All right, I'm back with my ingredients for the taco filling, and I have a leftover half of a baked potato, so I'm going to chop this up so that I can have chunks of potato in there. I also have 1 1/4 yellow bell peppers that I'm going to chop to put in there. And I have some kale, and then I have the stems from the cilantro and the white onion that I saved, and a couple more cloves of garlic that I'm going to crush into there. So I'm going to start with my vegetables and get those sauteing. Then I'm going to crumble up the tofu in there and add some spices. So I will be right back to show you where I'm at once I'm adding the spices. Olive oil. Okay, I've got my kale here finely chopped. My oil is hot. I'm gonna add in the bell peppers, onions, and cilantro stems. And I'm gonna give that a stir. Steamy. I'm gonna crumble in my tofu just with my hands. This is super firm, so I'll have to just squish it with my hands and crumble it in there. I want it to be really small pieces, so this is gonna feel a little bit like it was, ground turkey. Rather than tofu chunks, it'll be really small little pieces that will feel a little bit more like a turkey. I'll show you what that looks like in my hands here. So that's what it's gonna look like in there. And then I'm gonna crush up 2 cloves of garlic in there, and I'm gonna use the lime that I have left over, and I'll add the potato in last since the potato is already cooked from being baked. Just needs to heat up a little bit and maybe get it a little crispy in there at the end. And I decided to save some of the fresh bell pepper because my daughter really likes fresh bell pepper, and she's gonna enjoy eating that crunchy bell pepper next to her dinner. So even if she ends up not liking the salsa, she's gonna have the bell pepper as her fresh vegetable. I'm adding in the kale. Going to use my garlic crusher for these 2 large cloves of garlic. And sometimes when I make tacos, I like to make my tortillas, but that does take a little bit of advanced planning, and I did not do that today. So we're going to be using store-bought tortillas. And I've been shopping at our local natural grocers, and they have really healthy options there. So I was able to find some tortillas without any preservatives in them, really basic ingredients like flour, oil, and salt. So I'm looking forward to having those tortillas. Put my lime in here. Nice juicy lime to add some acid in there. And then I'm going to use ground pepper and salt. And I don't keep a ton of dried herbs on hand, so I'm going to see what I have. I'll add some paprika and maybe some coriander. That will go well in here, so I will be back. Okay, I did find some coriander in my spice cabinet, so I put that in there. I was out of paprika, but I had some smoked paprika. I don't want it to be too smoky, so I put just a tiny pinch of that, just hoping that it would give the dish some color. That's the main way that you can tell that it's tofu and not meat, is the color, because the tofu is white unless it takes on the color of the spices. So that's all I had in my spice cabinet today. So I'm just working with what I have. But I'm gonna let that saute up for a minute, and All right, my tofu has been cooking here for a while. My veggies are nice and soft, and now I'm going to add in my potato that I chopped into cubes, and I'll let that get hot and hopefully a little bit crispy in there. And for my toppings to go on top of the tacos, I have prepared some sliced avocado and some mixed greens. So once these potatoes get hot in here, it will be time to assemble. Oh, and I'm going to be heating up my tortillas. These are the tortillas that I found at Natural Grocers. They're Stacy's whole wheat tortillas. Really simple ingredients, just whole wheat and white flour, sunflower oil, baking powder, salt, and citric acid. So yeah, a couple more things than I remembered, but still minimal ingredients, healthy with whole wheat in there. So we will enjoy these tortillas. I will be back to show you the assembled tacos. Okay, for the assembly, I have my warm tortilla. I'm gonna put my lettuce in here and my tofu with the potatoes in here, some avocado slices, and then this delicious salsa. This looks so good. There is the taco. Can't wait to eat this. For my daughter's plate, I'm going to give her some of these toppings and a little bit of a tortilla and some of this salsa on the side here to see if she will try that. So here is my daughter's plate. All right, I'm going to finish serving up dinner and we are going to enjoy this. It's going to be so delicious. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you will join me again soon.